call my phone again and I'm gonna beat the fuck out you. Do you understand? Don't call my line because I don't know who the fuck you is. Alright?
Yep. Yeah, man. How you doing, my purples? Welcome back to the here. Welcome back to the black hole and see what excitement we got in here today. It's a very special day, per usual. You are not gonna believe this. My hair is growing a little wild, so I'm wearing this thing just to keep it out of the way. So no questions need to be asked. All right, that's just how it is. I'll tell you this little story that's been on the charts right now in Mr. Bless's life, you know what I'm saying? MPC One. I bought it just to prove a point that it sucks. And my conclusion is, it's just that. It's horrible. It's a piece of shit device, really. Good for nothing. No, I have to be honest with you. I fucking love it. I love it. I love it to pieces. So today's going to be a really in-depth review and walkthrough of it. So this is not going to be a quick rub one out type of video, you know what I'm saying? This is for the people who are considering buying it, or maybe they're waiting for one. Maybe you're just waiting on Mr. Postman to show up and he's taking forever right now, which tends to happen in these Rona times. So you can watch this video, just enjoy it in all of its glory, put it on when you're going to sleep, watch like half of it, wake up, watch it again because you missed it. You get the point. All right, let us go. All right. Number one, the layout of this thing. Here's the thing. I had the MPC Live like 2 years back, just when it came out. It wasn't really there yet with the software updates, with the firmware and all of that. And my number two gripe with it was the form factor. There was a lot of things I didn't really like about it, but the form factor was the number one. And let me say, Akai Professional, good job. Okay, you got it down now. This one has everything perfectly laid out. I know I was skeptical at the NAMM show. I was busting his chops a little bit about it because I thought it looked like a freak show, you know, with this big screen right here. Because I'm used to the older MPCs, the 2000, the 3000 and them. And I haven't really been on an MPC since then, apart from the MPC Live. But I think this is when they're actually getting back to what they do best, Akai. The standalone MPCs with the hands-on feel. Obviously, you have all the dedicated buttons right here. Oh, wait. This, yeah, I saved it. We're gonna do it. We're doing it right now. Ooh. Yeah, she's a keeper, let me tell you that. I love how everything is laid out here. You got dedicated buttons for most things right here. The Q-Link sliders, they feel really good. I mean, they feel like exceptionally good, amazingly good. The pads. The pads feel amazing. It doesn't really matter that they're this small. Honestly, when you open it up, you're gonna think first, these pads are tiny, but you get used to it really quick in playing them. So you have everything here accessible from the front. Almost everything you need to get at is going to be here within arm's reach, you know what I'm saying? And let me add to that also, for example, when you're editing samples and stuff, the MPC Live, it felt, for me, like it was too much of a, what's it called? iPad type of thing. I didn't like it very much at all because it felt like I had to use the touchscreen way too much. But here it's like the touchscreen really shines because it feels really intuitive when you're editing samples, moving around like this, you know what I'm saying? Using the Q-links in tandem with zooming in and out. Like sometimes it just feels like you want to grab the screen and touch something, and it's very intuitive and plays really nice in tandem with having all of these nice physical controls with it. So I really love it. Big one up for that. Same thing when you're in here, you know, editing the grid. It just feels really natural to get in there and touch without permission, you know what I'm saying? It's a pass. It's a pass with distinction. Some things are a little bit counterintuitive that could be updated as well. I don't know if there's a way to do this, but for example, you can grab all of these, for example, and I want to copy them and paste, and they end up where... Okay, I get it. Ah, that's how you do it. All right. So when you copy something from here, it will paste onto the playhead. That makes perfect sense. All right. Never mind that, actually. They got it figured out. I like how it works on machine when you copy things. Because if you set the grid to 1 bar, for example, I copy and I paste it, it's going to be copying 1 bar next to it, and that's a little bit faster even than this method, because then you have to go in and paste and then move to the next place and paste, whereas on the machine you can just paste, and you got from 1 bar you got 4 bars, you know what I'm saying? The other way you can do it is you can go out here in the sequence and do it the traditional way, how it works on the old MPCs. Copy these events here, but then you have to go in on parameter levels and set it to, like, yeah, from sequence 1, from track 1, what events do you want to copy? Okay, from bar 1 to bar 5, and copy those events starting from bar 5 and merge or replace. So that's a kind of a cumbersome process, you know what I'm saying? But overall, I think it's a beautiful thing, and the Q-Link sliders, they work very well in most applications. You can even customize the Q-Links to work exactly how you want them to, but right now by default, when you're editing the start point, for example, in the sample edit on the first Q-Link page, then the increments get finer as you go. And I would rather, you know, have the start points here and end points there, so you can do both the start and end points at the same time, because I'm very used to that. But you can set that up. Interface wise, if you're familiar with how MPC works, you are gonna feel right at home. It's gonna be a little bit more complicating, and you're gonna need to get into it. And if you're going from machine or something else, you need to get used to the program structure, ways of setting up. So every track has a program assigned to it. It might be a drum program, it could be a plugin, key group program, which is basically multi-sampled instrument. You can have clips, sort of like audio clips, sort of like in Ableton Live, MIDI or CV, and it has really extensive functionality. So the most standard way, I would say, is you're using a drum program, and then you have to get used to editing your programs, you know, going in there on the sample level, pressing the pad and assigning the sample you want to assign to that pad. In the program edit is where you're also going to have all the different parameters that are specifically for one pad alone. That's pretty quick to get used to, and it works pretty much the same way as older MPCs, except that it has more parameters and more functionality to it. Where it can get a little bit confusing is all the different ways of mixing it, because you got your track mute and you might have your the track muted there, but that's your MIDI. And then you have the program as well, and you can mute the different programs, and you can go into pad level and have pads muted. So muting or soloing stuff on one place is not synchronous to muting or soloing in another place. So you need to keep track of that and know what you're doing. And I'm saying the mixer is pretty much where it could get a little bit confusing. You need to always keep track of where you're at. Are you on a program level? Are you on a pad level? Are you on a track level? When you get the hang of that, it's pretty easy. Basically, one rule of thumb here is always keep the same tracks across the sequences. So if I make one sequence where the drums are on track 3, make sure on sequence 2 that the drums are on track 3 as well. So usually the way I structure things is I build all of the tracks in one sequence and make sure I don't want to add any more tracks with different instruments before I go on and break it out into sections and make other sequences, you know what I'm saying? And you can keep it pretty simple if you work that way. The features on here are plentiful, to say the least. Yeah, we can have a look at the menu right here and check it all out. We have the basic sample editing, of course, program editing, list edit if you want to get into this real, I don't know who does that. There's the browser functionality, and this one is really one of the cons. I don't really like the way that the browser is structured. It doesn't have any, it's just like a normal browser, you know what I'm saying? Like for instance on a Maschine or Ableton Live, you got a tag system and you can have all your sounds divided into different categories, and here it doesn't really work that way. These are pretty much filters. You can filter, you can go to a folder, filter out by samples, by programs, by sequences, or by projects, or all files. And say if I wanted to load up a kick and I wanted to browse all the kicks that are in the memory and on the SD card here, or an external device if you would have that, you would just go into the browser right here, go to content, samples, browse to the directory, and then it's a list of everything that's in that folder. So you might want to write kick there to list all of the kicks. And it's not the most convenient way, especially if you're spoiled with more modernized ways of browsing your sounds and browsing your library. It's a con right there. Sampler works how any sampler would. This is where you record your sounds. If you got something plugged into your MPC, you can sample it right in there. It works like it should. You can read sample directly from internally as well. Comes in handy a lot. There's a built-in looper as well. The functionality is really basic. It's like a one-track looper, so you can overdub and go multiple passes over this, and then you could bounce it out, export it to a sample and assign it somewhere. So it's a really handy little tool, you know what I'm saying, for recording ideas and stuff. But it could be even cooler. A multi-track looper would be really cool, because then you could jam out stuff and basically lay down almost the whole track in a jam session. So that's on my wish list. Please, Akai, fix this. You got the mixer. The mixer is a little bit unconventional. This is the pad mixer, and basically it takes you directly into mixing the levels of the pad. So that's first, make sure to know what program you're on, then go into the pad mix, and then you can set the inserts and the levels and the panning of all the individual samples that you have assigned to your pads in your programs. From here you can access level, pan, mute, your sends, your inserts, and your routings. About the routings, you could output your pad directly to your program. You got 8 different sub mixes if you want to do that, like send all of your drum sounds to a sub mix. And the different outputs here, this would require that you have a sound card with multiple outputs, because the MPC Live has multiple outputs. MPC One only has a stereo output, so you're going to be working with the out 1, 2 all the time. Or if you want to go mono, you could send it to 1 and 2, so then you would have 2 channels to work with. You know what I'm saying? Genius. And in the channel mixer, that's where you're going to have direct access to the program. So this is very much program oriented, you know what I'm saying? If you're comparing to Maschine, a program would be a group, pretty much. You have another level of adding effects here. You got 4 inserts on each level. You can put effects directly onto a pad. You can put 4 different effects, and then on the next level, on the track mix, you can put 4 effects on the program. Then you can put some insert effects on the master as well. And then of course you got your sends and returns that you can use. So little bit counterintuitive until you understand it, because it doesn't look like a regular mixer, but it's got more than what you need. You can also have a direct access here at looking at your pad here, your program. So you could access the mixer settings when you're working here from the main menu as well. You can go into pad mute if you want to use the pads as you're playing. Track mute if you want to mute a track. There's a structure thing, like every track has a program assigned to it. If you're using the same program on 3 different tracks and you're changing the volume of the program, then you're not going to be changing the volume of the track. It's going to be across those 3 tracks changing the volume, if that makes sense. And you can group tracks together here as well in the track mute. If I would assign these 3 to group 1. All right, let's just try it. Yeah, that's how it works. Bunch them all together and then just press 1 pad to mute multiple of them. Very good for live use. And the song is where you chain together a whole bunch of sequences and arrange a full song out of it. And I love this way of working actually, because I'll start with 1 sequence, build a whole bunch of shit on top of it, make a couple of other sequences, and it'll remember the track mutes and everything on that. So all you need to do to make variations to it is you can have your hook with everything stacked on it, for example. Copy that sequence to sequence 2, mute some of the tracks, make sequences and variations on it, and work that way, and then chain them all together, convert it to a new sequence, so you have 1 sequence that is the full song. So if I were to insert 10 of these in a row, convert it to a sequence, convert it to sequence number 3, which is empty, do it. Okay, now we got the whole beat there. And then you can do your final touches, because it's pretty easy to scrub around here. And also from the main menu, you could actually set where it starts and loops. So if you want to make a change between bar 15 and 16, you can edit it quite easily and intuitively in combination with the touchscreen right here. You got even this track view here where you can see all of your tracks, and even including the audio tracks. I haven't used that a lot, but it's pretty amazing. You can add a bunch of audio tracks and record on top of it, and these will run alongside with your sequence. The audio tracks work in tandem but separately from all the MIDI sequence tracks. This is also a good place if you have a bunch of outboard gear connected, CV gear or MIDI devices connected to the USB cord in the back, because you'll have a good overview. You can assign the channels to them, the inputs and outputs. You can arm them, record them at the same time. So it's like a little multi-track studio right here in one box. And I'm loving that idea, you know what I'm saying? I love the idea of having everything in one box. I don't have a lot of outboard gear, so speaking upon that, we'll go to the next topic, which is the sounds. I would say it's a little bit lackluster, but it's way better than what it was when they first launched the MPC Live. There are some pretty dope sounds in here, more than enough to get you started. But I'm not gonna lie, I'm spoiled with having the VST. So when I'm at the computer, I will use the machine instead. But this is more than enough to, fiddle around with some stuff. You will want to spend some time building up your library and putting it on a SD card or a USB stick or a USB hard drive. Also, it's got 2 gigabytes of internal storage, which means you can't have the entire contact library in there or something like that. It's just it's too much. So you're gonna need some sort of external solution if you want to have a wide variety choices. But the sounds that are included, they are pretty dope. Eventually, you will need some time to, you know, either get some MPC expansions or manage your own library and set it up in a nice structured way in folders in external solution like a SD card, USB drive, or a hard drive. That's just the sample side though. Like I said, I get a little spoiled with having VSTs, and that's not only about samples, it's more about having a bunch of plugins like effect plugins and synthesizers plugins. What is one of my favorite things about this now is that they have actually added a synthesizer. Oh yeah, before I talk about the synthesizers and the effects, let me just mention that I have not had any problems with the file size limit or the internal memory. It's 2 gigabytes. It's gonna take a lot of samples in there to fill that up. I think I read somewhere that it should take you about 1.5 hours worth of 44 kilohertz wave files, WAV, however you prefer to pronounce it. However, you will want to manage your files when you're saving projects and sampling a lot of stuff, because when you're saving your projects and saving your samples with them, you're gonna fill that space, internal memory, up pretty quick. Not the RAM, but the internal the memory, you know what I'm saying? Instead of doing the automatic saving thing, use this folder and use save as, and make sure that you save it on your external device in a projects folder or something. I have not done that so far, so I will probably fill it up pretty soon. Getting that habit in from the start is going to save you a lot of file management time. I suck with that. I don't practice what I preach a lot, but I'm telling you, do it. Alright, let me show you the synthesizer. So there are 3 different synthesizers. Oh, 3 different synthesizers in here, and it's pretty amazing. Check them out. Check them out. If you press plugin here, you'll automatically make a new plugin program, and down here you can choose one of the plugins, which at the moment you have 3 different ones to pick from. It's Bassline. It's a really dope bass synthesizer. That's pretty much all you need for your bass lines. Honestly, for synth bass, you're gonna come a far way with that. There's the tube synth and the electric. So the bass line, it looks like this. And there's pretty much every parameter that you could dream of in here, and a bunch of presets sorted into categories: thump, thwack, sub, basic, organ, bass, fuzz, throat, sub, throat. 4 pages of parameters, and it's really quick and intuitive to edit these, because you can press it on the screen and the Q link will hop right onto that parameter, and then you can start to edit it, and you can build on your own sounds, and it's pretty much limitless here what you can do with it. So I'm more than happy with that. The only thing that I don't like about the bass synthesizer is that there's no regular ass envelope control for it. So I would just like a standard like 80 SR on here to get a little bit even more control of it. But it's fine, you just have to learn how it works. I love the waveforms on it here, because it goes flowing like a wave, morphing between these different waveforms, from the sine wave, morphing into the square wave, morphing into the sawtooth and the triangle. Electric is an electric piano. And you know, it sounds alright. It's a physically modeled synth version, and it doesn't sound as good as like Lounge Lizard or any one of those, but it does the trick, and you can do some like cheesy electric piano sounds with it if you're into that, and I'm into that. Also on all of these synths, you got some extra effects here, like a spring reverb, a delay, tremolo tube, drive, and chorus. You can set up your polyphony. You can dive deeper into the settings of the bell, the tine sound of your electrical piano, and some noise there. So you can make it sound pretty cool. And in addition, with all the other effects, it's pretty amazing. It's magnificent. And then there's a favorite, my favorite, the tube synth. Same here as for all of these. Bunch of nice presets here. They're not really my flavor, a lot of them, so I will probably get to work cooking some of these presets up for myself. But a lot of nice sounding presets, a lot of not so nice sounding presets, but there are a lot of presets that work as very good foundations for making your own sounds on here. So you can make beats for days with these plug-in synthesizers alone. The only thing that I feel is missing is the more dope, natural sounding stuff that you'll find in the complete library, for instance. But in that case, you know, the workaround for that is you sit on the toilet or in the sofa, and you might use a couple of, like the piano sounds, for example. They sound like shit, so use them as stand-in crash test dummies and then export the MIDI. When it comes to the effects, there is more than you need, really. I mean, since they added the Air Effects library, you can shape your sound in whatever way you want. So if I wanted to add an effect, I'd go into the track mix here, for example. It's my plugin program with a sweet sine wave synthesizer. By the way, one thing I would like is some way to control the vibrato of it, like and the pitch mod. But if you hook up a little MIDI keyboard, you will have that set and play in a more natural way. Even before the effects, let me not forget about this, because the chord mode and the pad perform is pretty dope too. But you've seen this in other videos. There's a bunch of chord sets that you can cheat with. A bunch of progressions, different categories. And if you play a chord progression, you can also extract that chord progression onto pads afterwards. So yeah, they've gone all in on that too. There's not much missing from my point of view. Oh yeah, effects. Insert effects, we'll just scroll through them quick. So delay and reverb, you got air delay, difference delay, non-linear reverb, spring reverb, synced analog delay, high pass delay, low pass delay, mono, you know, every type of fucking delay there is. A bunch of different reverbs, a bunch of different insert effects for dynamics, like a whole channel strip, compressor, maximizer, noise gate, pumper, transient, EQ. See all this stuff here? The talkbox is pretty fun to play with the automation and make some wow sounds on your sound. A decimator, a lot of different distortion effects that for a lo-fi, crunchy, ring moddy type sound. And that I will add it that using these types of effects to get a lo-fi sound, like I'm not talking about the genre lo-fi, I'm talking about lo-fi, low fidelity audio, low sample rate and low bit rate. Don't use these vintage effects because they sound like shit. I don't know what they tried to do here, but the SP1200, it does not stack up at all against the ESPI 1200 or the machine emulation of it. Really, this is probably the worst emulation that I've heard. Even the MPC 60 emulation and the 3000 sounds worse than the machine does it. So I don't even bother with those. In modulation, you got your flanger, your choruses, ensembles, phasers, tremolo, you name it. So there's pretty much every effect you need, and there's so many different layers that you can add effects to also on your subgroups, on your returns, your inserts on the pads, on the program level, and the built-in effects on some of these plugins as well that you have. Reverb, compressor, hype, some sort of exciter, a delay, a chorus, all of this is built into the synth as well, so there's an extra layer of effects there, you know what I'm saying? When it comes to sample editing, it's an MPC, you know, it's one of the main tasks it's supposed to do, be good at sample editing. And it does a pretty kick-ass job at it. I will say some things could be a little bit more intuitive, but compared to any of the legacy MPCs, this one knocks it out the park. You know, say dangerous. Loading up samples is pretty easy. You can load it straight up to a pad like this. Make sure we set the track to a drum program, and yeah, that's the program that we have. So if we go in now, first to the program edit, we will see that I thought I assigned it somewhere, but apparently I did. Yeah, let's assign a sample, easy as that. Now it's on this pad in our program. We can go to sample edit. And either, you know, do it the manual way right here. There's all types of things you could do it. You know, discard, that's your old truncate. Remove everything that's to the left and right of your start and end points. You can delete the section that you've marked, silence it, extract it to a new sample, normalize it, reverse it, fade in what's between the start and end points, fade out, pitch shift that particular part, time stretch it. Time stretching sounds horrible on it. Gain change. Copy it to a new sample, bit reduce. Convert it from stereo to mono. Fuck, goddamn it, machine, can you add this now, Native Instruments, please? This is really useful when you're sampling from records, but because 90% of the time, all the time, you want to have what's either on the left or the right, because on older records, they always hard pan a lot more, and you could get the pieces that you want from it. But yeah, there's everything you need in here, and it's fairly quick to edit. And you also got some extra fancy functions such as chopping it with manually by threshold, so it automatically chops it up, and you can set the threshold here. Find more samples. Find more samples. Regions. So you just set it up to how many regions it should chop it up evenly to, or you could chop it up by BPM. And I'm a big fan of the manual way of chopping it. Now it's already made all of these slices, and I don't know how to, oh yeah, here. Clear all, good. Really quick, and then you can just make a new program by holding shift, convert, and make a new drum program out of it. So that's really quick. The only thing that I miss about it is, again, with the machine, since that one is a little bit more like, it's not program based. The programs are pretty much the groups, and the samples are always going to be where the samples are. So that also allows you to quickly copy from one pad to another. Here you would have to go into the program and let's make a new program there. Here you would have to go into the program. And you can edit your start and end points afterwards. It's non-destructive unless you made it destructive. But say I want this slice here on this pad as well. I just want to hold a button, touch it, and put it there too. Please, if anyone knows if there's a way to do that, let me know how to do that. If there's no way to do that, then goddamn it, fix it. It's much quicker than
selecting the sample, and then selecting the slice, and then editing it, and then going back to this pad and finding out that it's the same slice and it's referring to the same slice, so you can't change one without changing the other. So it's a little bit more cumbersome when you want to be quick with slicing your samples, you know what I'm saying? All of the features that it has, it's all good, but it could have some slight trimming modifications to make it even more quicker, like the Maschine, which in my opinion is still superior when it comes to sample editing. XY effects are pretty nice too, so you got these XY effects that you can add to a sound or to the program or to the master. And you got some nice beat repeats, low pass, band pass, high pass, flanger, and a tape stop. Wave folder is pretty cool. I know my man Slip26 on the Discord would love that. That's a beautiful way of distorting your sound without distorting it. It's sort of like on LSDJ, you can choose when the waveform goes above, instead of distorting the sound or clipping it, it folds it and changes the shape of the waveform instead, and it sounds very gnarly. Radical.
If you watch this far, I'm just letting you know it's not the end of mine and the Machine's love affair. I still prefer it, but it is not standalone. So Native Instruments, you take some notes now and you step it up, because you're taking forever to get the standalone Maschine out. This for me is what I love to have on the couch, in the toilet, you know what I'm saying, in the sleeping room. It's the pros of it, you know. I just flick it on, I get to working on a beat instantly, and then I wrap it up in the computer. That's the pros of it, you know what I'm saying. I just flick it on, get to some beat making and get something done. And then, you know, having myself a good old time. Cons, the time stretching is absolutely horrible. You can't go beneath 6 or 7% without it sounding like poop. I mean, it can't stack up against Ableton Live or even Maschine. But I don't use time stretching that much, so it doesn't really bother me. And the Ishimaloo about it having no battery. I have to stress this again, that there is a lot of people buying these portable batteries that they're using with it, and it doesn't have the correct current. Even if it's too low or too high, it's gonna wear on your MPC One. So don't get one that's not perfect. You need to use one that you can plug the entire box thing with. I love the idea of everything in one box. This is a keeper for me. I'm keeping them both. That's how it is, because it's amazing. The other thing, the limited space, not a big problem. You can solve it with storage space, extra storage space, SD cards, USB drives, hard drives, whatnot. I will be doing a little mini series on this called MPC One Road Bumps, with all the little road bumps that I bumped into learning this. I'm not going to be doing this how to turn it on, how to chop up a sample type of thing. There are some great people out there you should check out. Ave Macquarie, Accurate Beats, what's he called? Tube Digger, if you want to get really detailed into that. But I will be making a few short videos with the road bumps that I ran into, with sort of like standard stuff, the standard procedure stuff that's not obvious off the bat. So expect that to come, and please let me know, like, subscribe, let me know what type of content you want me to make with the MPC One, or something else. Maybe you want me to make some more Game Boy stuff. Who knows? And join our Discord community, please. The Black Hole. It's a beautiful place. Link is down below in the description. Okay, bye-bye.